All right, welcome back, guys. This is Clash of Cultures coming at you guys with another video again, kind of just a bonus video. Basically, today we're just going to do ranking our top 10 non-Heisman winners since 2010. So this won't be a full podcast. This should be like a short, we're going to try to keep it short, video just talking about what players kind of got snubbed or should have got the Heisman. And you guys can give us your takes in the comment section below on who you guys agree or if we left somebody out. So to start off, Dad, go ahead and name your first honorable mention.
All right, so my first honorable mention from West Virginia, Pat White, just a dynamic quarterback. If you remember with Steve Slayton, their ability to run the ball, Pat White's ability to run the ball and throw the ball, both from the quarterback and running back position, over 6,000 yards passing in his career at West Virginia, over 4,000 yards rushing. Just a dynamic quarterback. They just West Virginia at that time was just fun to watch. That's my first honorable mention.
It's funny. I didn't even think about him. That's crazy. I like it didn't even come in my head. And it's funny because he actually did have a really good career.
I'm checking you to think about Pat White.
And the crazy thing, I'm pretty sure he was on that team that blew Clemson out in the bowl game. I think they won by like 30, 35. It was like 70-34 or something. But that's a really good one. My first honorable mention is going to be LaMichael James from Oregon.
Okay.
I don't know what that face was for. Like, he wasn't a dog with Oregon. But, I mean, I think the reason why I think LaMichael James needs to be he didn't make my list. As far as honorable mentions go, there could be 20 honorable mentions. So this is just a guy that I enjoyed watching. He had – in his career, he had 5,000 yards rushing. Every year at Oregon, all 3 years, he had over 1,500 yards. He had 21 touchdowns his sophomore year, and then he had 18 touchdowns his junior year. And then from scrimmage, he had 57 touchdowns total. So he must have had either four receiving touchdowns or 4 punt return, 4 kick return. But he was during that time, he was the whole offense for Oregon. And that was when they first started getting like nice uniforms. So that was like, I think that's what kind of gravitated me towards him. Who is your next honorable mention?
No, I did not think of LaMichael James at all, I'll be honest. My second honorable mention, and I am fairly certain this person is in your top 10 list. I just have a feeling, especially me knowing you, my second honorable mention is Percy Harvin. Almost 2,000 yards receiving, 2,000 yards rushing. If you remember, basically Urban Meyer and the H-back position was really kind of named and designed after Percy Harvin, who brought it to Ohio State. Same position that Curtis Samuel played. But yeah, just his ability, both as a pass catcher and a rusher, just exciting anytime he had the ball. Obviously, at the time, we were in Virginia Beach. We saw his last high school year at Lansdowne High School before going on to Florida. And so we were both, me and my son both we're Percy Harvin fans, except for when they played Ohio State. But yeah, he was just a dog. And he's my second honorable mention.
So he didn't come up in my head at all.
Oh my goodness.
And that's my favorite that's my favorite football player of all time. I have a jersey right here signed. I'm not gonna flip the camera, but you guys have a jersey right here signed. I have a framed picture since I was like 10 here signed. He, to me, like the other guys on this list, don't get me wrong, he's a great player. He's my favorite player. But the other guys on this list, I realistically think they should have won a Heisman. And that's why I think that they're better than him, just overall football wise. But that's another good one that I didn't even think about. My second honorable mention is Colt McCoy.
Okay.
I think Colt McCoy, he easily could have been on this list as far as top 10. He had 13,000 yards passing in college. He had a record of 45-8 in 53 career starts. He won the Maxwell Award. He won the Davey O'Brien Award, which is the best quarterback in college football. He won 10 games in 4 seasons, and he had 3 bowl wins. So I think that's one guy, and that's like the last time Texas was really relevant was during that time. So I think, I'm pretty sure, is his number retired with him?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Let me look it up. I'm pretty sure it is. But he other than Vince Young, he's the next name that you think of when you think of Texas football. Absolutely. So I have him as an honorable mention.
Yeah, so my next honorable mention, again, my purview was just who I thought the best college football players were. Not necessarily because this guy I don't think had a reasonable shot at winning the Heisman. But since 2000, he is one of my favorite college football players. James Laurinaitis, the linebacker from Ohio State. Obviously, I'm a big Ohio State fan. The son of Hawk. He was a monster. We're talking about over 200 solo tackles while he was at Ohio State. A two-time, maybe three-time Big Ten linebacker. One of my favorite Ohio State players of all time. That's my third honorable mention, James Laurinaitis.
He was almost an honorable mention for me, but I didn't want to put him on here just because there were some other guys. So my third honorable mention, this might be a surprise. I don't know if you have him in the top 10 or not. It might be a surprise. Some other people might think I'm ranking him really low. I got Trevor Lawrence here. You have Trevor Lawrence in your top 10?
I do.
Okay, yeah, I have him as an honorable mention. Obviously, I'm a Clemson fan. I think the reason why I knocked him down out of the top 10 was because he had a lot of help. In that championship run, he went undefeated. He won the college football national championship. He beat arguably the best defense ever assembled in college football, 44-16. He had 3,600 yards, 36 touchdowns, and 8 picks. But ultimately, the reason why I knocked him down is because he had a lot of help. And we have another Clemson quarterback in this list, so I didn't want to put two and kind of be that guy. But moving on to our actual top 10 now. So that was the honorable mentions. Let us know if you guys, with the honorable mentions that we put, if you guys would have them in the top 10, and list us your top 10 as well. So do you want me to go first, or do you want to go first with number 10?
Well, let me go with number 10, only because my number 10 is Trevor Lawrence. Okay. 3,000 yards passing every season that he was at Clemson. Started as a freshman, was there 3 years, 34 wins, only 2 losses, over 10,000 yards passing, 90 touchdowns. Just an amazing run as a quarterback. And like Steven said, and I think it's pretty obvious, I have another Clemson quarterback in my top 10. I almost bumped him down. So this is why it was actually kind of funny, because I almost bumped him down to my honorable mention. But yeah, James Laurinaitis. I have Trevor Lawrence as my number 10 top player since 2000.
Okay, so with my number 10, this is where it gets a little shaky. Just because I want to know if you had this guy on your list. Okay. If you had James Laurinaitis, you had to have had this guy. I got Manti Te'o at number 10.
I do not have Manti Te'o.
That's crazy. Just because he went to the ceremony, he led Notre Dame to the championship. He had 113 tackles, 7 picks in his senior year, had over 430 tackles in his career. And I think what a lot of people have the bad taste in their mouth with the whole catfish saga, and I think that outshines his play on the field. But he was a really good football player. He was a play caller. Yeah, he was a play caller for Notre Dame. And other than him on that team, I can't think of another person on that team. So that just shows, how good he was, and he led them to the national championship game. And I'm pretty sure he had a decent game in the national championship. But obviously, with the documentary that just came out within the last couple of months, and over the last 5 or 6 years, or maybe 10 years ago, he went to the championship, 2010, 2011. But around that time, a lot of it just got drowned out with the whole catfish saga. He didn't have a good NFL career. So I think that it just left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouth as far as Manti Te'o and his college football legacy. So I feel like it's a shame that he's not on your list, even for honorable mention. That's crazy.
Yeah, no. And I told you, so my honorable mention list is actually, hold on one second. My honorable mention list is actually pretty long. But my number 9, and I think you may have this person a little bit higher if you thought about him. Okay. Number 9, 2-time Biletnikoff winner, Michael Crabtree, which I think he was just one of the most dominant wide receivers in college football during his time. Over 200 catches, really kind of in 2 years. Like I said, 2-time Biletnikoff winner, almost had a 2,000-yard season receiving, 40 touchdowns at Texas Tech. And that's really kind of the beginning of that. You remember, if you remember those years, Florida, Texas Tech, that was really kind of the beginning of that spread them out offense. And yeah, he was a dog.
So I do have him higher. So we'll get to that when I get there. My number 9 is Melvin Gordon. Do you have Melvin Gordon on your list?
I don't have Melvin Gordon.
See, I had a feeling that we're gonna have a wide disparity on this list, but I feel like not having Melvin Gordon is crazy as well.
I'm shocked because I'm wondering.
In one season, he had 2,600 yards rushing and 29 touchdowns. That's more than Heisman winners Derrick Henry and Mark Ingram. Significantly more. And also, you also have to take into account the second year he shared carries with James White. because that was like during the time where they had like Monty Ball, James White, John Clay. They had a lot of good running backs, and he was one of them. And then you have in his entire career, he almost hit 5,000 yards rushing in Wisconsin while sharing carries. That is crazy. So I do have him at my number 9.
Yeah, that Wisconsin offense, and listen, no knock to him. He did his thing. There's another Wisconsin running back, and they kind of seem to do it every year. But yeah, no knock. My number 8 player, Run DMC, Darren McFadden. Especially if you remember Arkansas back with Felix Jones. He was just a monster, 2-time All-American, over 1,500 yards twice in college, 4,500 yards total in 3 seasons, over 40 touchdowns. Back-to-back, finished runner-up in the Heisman. Just an amazing running back, especially in his time in Arkansas. So that's who I have at number 8, Darren McFadden.
So what's actually crazy, I had him on my list, and he's not on my list anymore.
You had him on your list?
I had him on my list. Down? I had him on my list, and as I kept adding players, I realized that all these players I have, I would take over him. And especially the running backs I have on my list, like if I'm comparing numbers side by side, and not everything for me is about numbers, but it's also like how electrifying you were. I just think that Melvin Gordon and another running back I have on this list, and then I could have said Darren McFadden for a honorable mention, but I just felt like the other guys I had above him were better than him career-wise. And I also kind of favored more so your best season. It's kind of like the Jordan versus LeBron argument. Like Jordan's peak, it might be higher than LeBron, but LeBron's, his career. So that's why I kind of used that. And that's why I had Melvin Gordon on there instead.
So I'll be honest, and obviously we'll go through this. I have another 3 running backs on my list.
Interesting. We'll see when we get there.
Yeah.
Moving on to my number 8. I am 99% sure you don't have this guy on your list. And I'm 99% sure nobody watching this video has this guy on this list.
Okay.
This is a homer pick for me. I'm going Colt Brennan at my number 8.
Oh, okay. I respect that.
The reason why I'm going Colt Brennan, he had 14,000 yards passing at Hawaii. Obviously, he played in the Mountain West, so the conference. I mean, he doesn't have too good of opponents, but he also doesn't have too much good talent around him. But he had, like I said, he had 14,000 yards passing in just 3 years, 3 seasons. He had 14,000 yards passing. He had a stacked Heisman field. I forget who won the Heisman that year. It was in 2010. I want to say it was Cam Newton. It might have been
2000. Cam Newton won 2010.
Let me fact check myself really quick.
Yeah, but while you're doing that, yeah. Now the only thing that hurt Colt Brennan for me is 1, the run and shoot. Hawaii was throwing the ball every play. 2, that showing against Georgia. If you remember that bowl game against Georgia when Hawaii was 12-0 and they got blasted. But I actually did think about it.
Okay, so he actually the year I wish he would have won the Heisman was 2006, and that's the year Troy Smith won the Heisman, and I like Troy Smith as well. I can't really complain about that. But again, he played in the Mountain West, and if you're looking numbers side by side, he had a similar season as Joe Burrow. And if you guys watched the last video, Joe Burrow was the number 2 on both of our lists for top 5 Heisman winners since 2010. So that's who I have at my number 7. Oh, I'm sorry, number 8.
Yep. So my number 7, one of my 3 remaining running backs is Saquon Barkley when he was at Penn State. Again, about 4,000 yards rushing in 3 seasons there, over 40 touchdowns. Also, 1,200 yards receiving. He was just a monster at Penn State. Like I say, and I think Steven talked about it our last episode. Obviously, I watch a lot of Big Ten football as an Ohio State fan. He was electric anytime he got the ball. With the little arm wiggle he did when he scored a touchdown. Just a great running back at Penn State. I thought he definitely could have been in the running for Heisman.
So it's funny. That's another guy that I bumped out along with Darren McFadden. So I don't have him on this list just because, again, when you look at the numbers compared to Somebody else I have on this list, as well as Melvin Gordon, I couldn't justify it, so I left him off the list. My number 7, I have Michael Crabtree. You had him at number 9, right?
Yeah, I had him at 9.
Yeah, so I had Michael Crabtree there. The only I mean, you already named the stats he had, but I think what hurt him the most on why he didn't get the Heisman that year was just because that was a really stacked field. That's when you had Tim Tebow, Darren McFadden, and you had another player that I didn't write down that I forget, but he also had a better year than Michael
Darren
Crabtree.
McFadden finished higher than him in Heisman voting?
Correct.
Oh, yeah, I knew that. I just wanted to point that out.
But you also got to take it. You also got to take into account how many receivers do you got on this list?
I don't know. I'll see as I go up. Let me see.
I
definitely have one more.
I only have one receiver on that list, and that's why he made it over the other running backs I had.
Okay.
I didn't want to. That's
wait
the
a
only
minute.
reason.
Michael Crabtree is your only receiver?
Correct.
Oh, you wilding.
No, you'll see why when we get down here. You'll see why we get down here. And then going on to your number 6. Wait. 10, 9, 8. Yeah, your number 6.
So my number 6, and I'm shocked if you don't have this person, is, again, I told you I had 3 more running backs. This is one of them, Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey out of Stanford had a 2,000-yard rushing season, had a 1,600-yard rushing season. Again, almost 4,000 yards rushing in one season. He was not the starter. Again, a threat out of the backfield as well, over 1,000 yards receiving. Again, if we're talking about guys who could have won the Heisman, I have to put Christian McCaffrey in that list.
And that's your number 6.
That's number 6, yep.
My number 6 is Andrew Luck. I think Andrew Luck has to be on this list just because he was considered to be the best quarterback prospect coming out of college in a really long time. Obviously, we talked about Trevor Lawrence, but before Trevor Lawrence, it was Andrew Luck. He had his sophomore year, he led Stanford to a 12-1 record with 3,300 yards, 32 touchdowns, and 8 picks. And he, like I said, he was one of the more complete quarterbacks in college football. And another one of the situations where I can't name another player on that team. So I can't name a receiver on that team who he's throwing to. He might have had a good tight end because Stanford always has good tight ends. Yeah. So I'm sure the tight end that he was playing with is in the league now. It might have been, is it Austin Hooper, or is he not that old?
I don't think Austin Hooper's that old. Yeah. No,
okay, well,
I'm not sure.
Yeah, so regardless, he probably had a good tight end. He probably had a good offensive line. But other than that, I can't name another person. I think he played with, what's his name? Richard Sherman. I mean, that's pretty much it. I'm pretty sure they played together. But that is my my number 6.
All right, my number 5, and I am shocked that you do not have this person. This is a person
Fitzgerald.
Early 2000s. Yeah, Larry Fitzgerald. Again, just an amazing wide receiver in college. Obviously, Randy Moss is a little bit before, but this is probably the second best receiver that I believe in college that I've seen. Now, I didn't see Jerry Rice in college, and obviously played at HBCU. I did see Randy Moss, who I thought was amazing. And this is Larry Fitzgerald in college at Pitt is probably the second best receiver I've seen. He just seemed to be dominant. He had the long stretch of touchdown catches. 34 touchdowns in his career, which really was only 2 seasons. He redshirted a year, and then 2 seasons that he played at Pitt before he went to the NFL. So again, when I'm telling you these numbers, remember they're just over 2 seasons, over 2,500 yards receiving, 161 catches, and like I said, 34 touchdowns. Just amazing. I have Larry Fitzgerald number 5.
My number 5 is Christian McCaffrey. Okay. So you had him a little bit. I think you had him at 6 or 7, but I have him at 5.
Okay.
He's a human highlight reel, man. He had 5,000 yards from scrimmage, 31 touchdowns, and it's not even his stats. The reason why I had him this high on this list, because technically Melvin Gordon probably would outweigh as far as stats, but that guy literally was the entire offense for Stanford. They were giving the ball on kick returns, punt returns, lining him up out wide, wildcat, out of the backfield. He can do everything. In 2016, he had a game against UCLA. He had 240 yards rushing and 4 touchdowns. So that just shows. I mean, he had a lot of games. He definitely had a lot of games where he had over 100 yards. Not like a guy that's still on this list that we're waiting to talk about. But that's where I had McCaffrey. I had him at 5. So who was your number 4?
My number 4 is Ndamukong Suh. Just probably the best defensive player I've seen in college. Again, and I can't go back Super Bowl. But if you remember, for those of you who watched that 2009 Big 12 championship game against Texas, when Nebraska was playing Texas and Colt McCoy, and Ndamukong Suh had 4.5 sacks. Literally, Nebraska's offense was playing horrible, and he dang near won the game by himself. He was unblockable in college, 24 sacks over his career. But again, from a defensive tackle position, that's not a position that normally gets a bunch of sacks, but just applies a lot of pressure. He was unblockable. I had to put him at number 4.
My number 4 is a defensive player as well, who also had 24 sacks in his career. Can you guess who it is?
Ndamukong Suh.
No.
Oh, who?
He was a number 1 overall draft pick.
Number 1 overall draft pick? Myles Garrett?
Jadeveon Clowney.
Oh, yeah.
So
I didn't think of him.
I have him at my number 4. The numbers are not eye-popping, but everybody has seen the play where he hit the guy in the backfield. The guy fumbles. He grabs the ball with one hand after he does that. I think that right there was a test to his athleticism. Obviously, I'm a Clemson fan, so I hate the Gamecocks, but I do think that he has to be on this list. I was between him and Ndamukong Suh. I leaned more towards Clowney because I had a feeling you were going to have
Ndamukong
Suh on here.
Ndamukong Suh is not on your list?
He's not on my list.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, he's not on my list. I have 3 guys above him, and so I know 2 of your guys. That means you're missing one.
Yeah, wait a minute. If my top 3 is not on your list, then you should quit doing this.
Wait. So, okay, who's your number 3?
All right, so my number 3 is Deshaun Watson.
Okay, that's fine.
And we
that's
know
really
the numbers
low. That's really low.
We know I think my 2 are, but we know the numbers with Deshaun, right? The 2 trips to the national championship, great games against Alabama, lost 1-1-1, over 10,000 yards passing, just a magician at Clemson, really from Taj Boyd, who kind of put Clemson on the map as a winner. Deshaun, to me, put Clemson on the map as a national championship contender. So all that he did at Clemson, again, I think probably goes down as one of the biggest Heisman snubs ever, but he's definitely on my list at number 3, and I feel fairly confident. I feel good with him at number 3 when I name my other 2 players.
Okay, so listen, I'm telling you, if you don't have this guy on your list, I'm going to walk out this damn room. I'm going to walk out.
Oh, let me see. Go ahead.
At my number 3, I have Jonathan Taylor.
I don't have Jonathan Taylor on my list.
There's no way. There's no way you don't have Jonathan Taylor on your list. What happened to him? We got technical difficulties, y'all. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, where'd you go?
Where'd you go?
Man, you disappeared.
Listen, I hope you went back to go fix your damn list.
No, my two above that are go ahead. Because you're missing somebody big.
So I want to know in the comment section. So I want y'all to tell us. Maybe I'm tripping. The fact that you don't have Jonathan Taylor better be better than the fact that I don't have whoever you have up here.
Yeah, you're missing somebody big.
Okay,
because I know you have Deshaun on your list, and that means you're missing somebody big.
Okay, wait. So Jonathan Taylor had 3 straight 2,000-yard seasons.
Go ahead.
3 straight 2,000-yard seasons.
No knock to him.
50 rushing touchdowns in his career. Again, sharing the ball. They use multiple backs. In 41 games, he only had 9 games under 100 yards rushing.
Let me tell you my problem though with Jonathan Taylor. All of those games were the big games. I think he had a couple games against Ohio State where he didn't have 100 yards rushing. So yeah, I ding him for that. Plus, the people I have above him, I'm bugging.
But you don't even have him on your list.
I'm bugging right now that you are missing somebody big.
Bro.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Are you done with Jonathan Taylor?
41 games with nine games of 100 yard less. 12 of those games he had 200 or more, and he had a 300-yard game.
I have no idea who you're missing, but your list is incomplete. You get
so
incomplete.
Wait, so you're gonna name 2 more people?
Yes,
I'm gonna name 2 more people. What do you mean?
So I'm saying,
okay, I got you.
one of these people.
You named Deshaun Watson.
I know Deshaun Watson's on your list.
Okay, so whoever your number 2 is who I'm missing.
My number 2 is Adrian Peterson.
I removed him off my list.
How do you not have Adrian Peterson on your list?
Because if you look at his numbers, it's not as good as any other guy I have on here. Besides Christian McCaffrey, he's the only one.
Again, this is one of the most dominant running backs in college football, probably history.
Wait. So how is he more dominant than Jonathan Taylor?
Because I take Jonathan Taylor off. 1, because Wisconsin power run team, that's what they do anyway. 2, because Jonathan Taylor, again, when you mention the 9 games that he did not have 100 yards, a lot of those were against. So Jonathan Taylor and that Wisconsin team did a very good job of beating up again on bad teams. But when they played the Ohio States, now I don't know what he did against Michigan or Penn State or anybody like that. But every time we bottled him up. Adrian Peterson was a specimen. Now again, he doesn't have the Jonathan Taylor numbers.
He doesn't at all.
Right? But again, we're talking again a running back who went day near 2,000 yards his freshman season. The guy was a monster.
And I think the reason why I have him in my honorable mentions list, but it's like way far. So this is what I've had put down. The only reason I have him here under my next few guys are because he gradually got worse, statistic wise, over his college career. And simply the guys I have above him have more outstanding numbers in my eyes.
But that doesn't make sense because you started with his best season. You started with, I put more credit on his best season.
Even if you look at his best season compared to Jonathan Taylor's best season, Jonathan Taylor has 3 seasons better than his best season.
His best season is better than is better than Melvin Gordon's.
No, it's not. Melvin Gordon has a better season than everybody on this list. He has 2,900 yards rushing and 29 touchdowns. 2,600 yards rushing and 29 touchdowns.
All right, I don't think Melvin.
Bro, no. That's the reason. That's the reason I have AP not on here is because
I got a number 2.
Regardless, even if you're going off a career or if you're going off a best season, he has a worse career and statistic-wise, worse career and best season than Jonathan Taylor and Melvin Gordon.
No, I don't think he has. I don't think he has less impact.
Maybe he doesn't have less. Okay, I'll give you that. Maybe he doesn't have less impact because Wisconsin, they're just going to run the ball every play. I agree with that.
Right.
So
and that's why I put no Wisconsin running backs.
But then again, if you look at impact wise, who had a bigger impact for their team? Adrian Peterson or Christian McCaffrey?
Adrian, what are you talking about? Well, both were great.
Impact wise, McCaffrey had a don't knock McCaffrey now.
But again, you're talking about a guy who came in and rushed for 2,000 yards his freshman season.
I know, I understand that. But
you're talking about one of the top running back recruits.
Junior year,
it
went down.
His carries went down as well.
What that mean? His carries went down.
He was getting less carries.
They didn't trust him.
I don't think it's a trust thing. I think they said, man, maybe we shouldn't give a running back 330 carries in a season.
Hey, you know,
but go ahead, because I think all right, you got to have at least this guy. Go ahead. Who's your number 2?
But you know who they did give the ball to 330 times a season?
Here we go.
You know who they did, right?
Who was Jonathan Taylor?
I'm sure him and
look up. I want to, and I'm going to pull this up. Jonathan Taylor versus Ohio State.
I can look it up for you right now.
But go ahead. Name your number. Who did I just name? My number 2. Name your number 2.
My number 2 is Deshaun Watson.
Oh, you went Deshaun Watson too. Okay.
The fact that you have Adrian Peterson above him baffles me. That is disrespectful. That is disrespectful.
A monster.
That is disrespectful. This guy, if we're talking about strictly Heisman, this guy may be the biggest Heisman snub in college football history. And that's literally. I don't consider it like I consider that he was in both conversations. No, right? He should have won it one of those years. In 2015,
but I don't think it was some travesty that he didn't win.
So who would you say is the biggest snub?
I don't know. I'd have to really think about it. That's why I said I kind of do. I don't know. But
because
I don't think it was a travesty.
Let me just read you the numbers. I have a lot of numbers for this guy because obviously, this is my guy here. Another jersey on the wall. We don't like massages, though. Let's just say that.
Well, listen, we're just talking college football. We're not talking about what he did in Houston.
Okay. But so in 2015, so we could talk about single season. We could talk about career with this guy. He did it all. In 2015, he had 4,100 yards passing, 35 touchdowns.
Don't forget
35 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. That's my only knock with him. He had a lot of interceptions. He did take a lot of risks. He had 11 in that same year in 2015. He had 1,100 yards rushing and 12 touchdowns. He's the first quarterback since Vince Young to do that. 4,000 yards passing, 1,000 yards rushing.
Who did he lose the Heisman to? No, that year wasn't.
In 2015, he lost the Heisman to Derrick Henry. Okay. In 2016, he lost it to Lamar Jackson.
Okay.
So now he lost to Derrick Henry 45-40 in the national championship game. In 2016, he had 4,600 yards passing, 41 touchdowns, 17 picks, 600 yards rushing, 9 touchdowns. So he had 50 touchdowns that year, his junior year. And he goes undefeated and beats Alabama in the national championship game.
Now, I will say, if you ask me, do I think he should have beat Lamar Jackson? Yes, but you just said in our past, you had Lamar Jackson as one of your top Heisman winners since 2010. Because he was so exciting.
Whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah, listen, we got to I got receipts.
When I say Deshaun Watson is a snub, I'm talking about, so if you look at.
So what season is he a snub from? So that's what I'm asking.
So, for example, I'm just going to give you kind of context. Michael Crabtree, his best year, he had 1,900 yards. Listen, I'm going to give you context. He had 1,900 yards, 22 touchdowns.
Okay.
Devontae Smith won the Heisman with 1,800 yards, 23 touchdowns.
So, yeah, but you're talking two different seasons.
But my point is, he is arguably the best player to never win a Heisman. The only guy I have above him. Okay. The only guy I have above him is I would compare numbers to this guy. But
now, I'm going to talk impact, right? And that's where my number one would beat him out, especially as a Heisman snub, because my number one to me is I don't want to say a Heisman snub because I don't think he should have won it the year that's obviously in question.
Okay, wait. Heisman snub was a bad phrase to use. He should have won a Heisman. That's the best way I can put it because I don't think he should have got it over certain players because I think Derrick Henry deserved it. I think Lamar Jackson deserved it. But I think if you put Deshaun Watson in another year, he's going to win it over some of the other guys.
I agree with that. Like if you looked at the Troy Smith year, he had better numbers than Troy Smith. You could if you compared. But again, to me, that's kind of apples to oranges because we're talking about two different years.
But I think also that's why a lot of these guys ended up on this list. Because
absolutely.
Yeah, and that's why, to me, I think it's disrespectful. You got him at 3 under Adrian Peterson. That's crazy.
Well, let me say this, but Adrian Peterson was second in Heisman his year, right? If we go back and
I don't know what Deshaun Watson finished. I think he finished second both years.
Yeah, I think so too. But if we go back and let's now talk about the Wisconsin running backs, I don't think either one of them were top 3. I don't think either one of them got a New York invite.
Jonathan Taylor.
I don't think Taylor or Melvin Gordon got a invite. Now I'm not sure. This is off the top of my head.
I don't remember either.
But I think because of Wisconsin running backs getting the ball 800 times a game, because that's all Wisconsin did, they didn't have the impact that again, a Deshaun Watson, to me, and Adrian Peterson, right, had.
So Jonathan Taylor finished 5th his sophomore year, either 5th or freshman or sophomore year, he finished 5th. This next year, he finished 9th.
Yeah, so he never went to New York.
And his last year, he finished 5th again. So, but I mean, the reason why I think it's disrespectful, going back to that, we're going to talk about this one. Deshaun Watson has an argument to be number 1 on this list.
He does. He has a legit argument. But I can also say, again, Adrian Peterson as a 2,000-yard as a 2,000-yard rusher his freshman season. Number 2 in Heisman ranking his freshman season. Almost the only true freshman to win the Heisman.
What did Jonathan Taylor didn't play his freshman year? Oh
I don't
no, he
think
did.
that.
No, he did. He had 2,000 yards rushing his
Oh
freshman
my
year as
goodness, here
well.
we go.
Just to throw that one out there.
That's not,
And he,
not but
hey,
that's
and
what
he had
counts in football.
But I think
All
the
right, let's go to
reason.
number one. Let's go to number one, and then we can.
Okay.
Cause I think we obviously both have the same number one. I believe we better. So I got Vince Young, number one.
I have Vince Young as well,
Yeah.
but it was definitely a toss up between the two. I think the reason why I have Vince Young number one is just because he's a pillar in college football. He obviously holds way more weight than Deshaun Watson does as far as like just historical games. I mean, that Rose Bowl game that he played against USC is widely considered the best college football game of all time.
Yeah, absolutely.
He had 3,000 yards passing, 26 touchdowns, 10 picks. In 2000, and just like I said about Deshaun Watson, he had the 4,000 yards passing and then 1,000 yards rushing.
Yeah.
Vince Young had 1,000 yards rushing 2 years in a row, and he had double-digit touchdowns rushing both those years as well. And again, he lost to arguably one of the best college football teams of all time. And if we were basically just doing best college football players of all time, he lost to the best college football player of all time in my eyes.
Yeah. And obviously, if we did this list and included Heisman winners, I would add Reggie Bush. Reggie Bush, to me, is the most electrifying college football player I've ever seen. But I'm going to tell you, right high on that list was Vince Young. Vince Young in college was amazing. In that Rose Bowl game that we're talking about, where Texas won the national championship, you're talking about 200 yards passing, 200 yards rushing, almost 1,000 yards rushing in 3 seasons. Really, he missed it his freshman season by 2 yards. I don't think he beats Deshaun Watson based off numbers, right? Deshaun Watson has some amazing numbers, but what he meant to that Texas team, Deshaun Watson, I think, just had better talent around him. But what he meant, Vince Young was that Texas team, and was able to like you said, take them to a national championship against the team that they were widely considered they were going to get smacked by, right? This was a USC team that we were at the time before that game arguing as maybe one of the best college football teams ever, with Liner, with Lindell White, with Reggie Bush that we talked about, with that defense, Cushing, and all the guys they had on defense. And he single-handedly, just like I kind of talked about in Donica Sue, he single-handedly won that game. Every big play, he just continued to make it happen, and that was he was just an amazing college football player.
And just to kind of end this little episode that we did, I'm going to briefly, I don't know if you remember this, Dad, but that was the first college football game I've ever watched.
Really? I didn't know it was your first college football game.
Do you remember where we watched that game?
I know I watched it. I don't know where we were.
We were on your ship. We watched
a Tiger cruise?
I was on a Tiger cruise, and we watched that football game on a
ship. In the berthing.
Yeah, like it was like in a room. That's all I remember. I mean, I was like what? I was 6, 7. I was 8 maybe. It was in 2005.
2005, yeah,
so 17 years ago.
8,
I was
9?
like 9. Yeah, I was like 9. But yeah, just like quick little fun story time there. That's crazy.
Yeah.
When I was making this list, I was like, that's crazy. I watched that game on a ship. I don't remember. I'm sure we weren't in the middle of the ocean, but we did.
I think so. That was on the USS Boxer. We were, whenever we finished deployments on an amphib, we dropped Marines off. And then I think we had the little time where we were going to, or maybe we were coming from Hawaii. No, yeah, because you flew out to Hawaii, you stayed with your grandma, and then you brought the ship back from Hawaii to San Diego.
How long did that take?
It's like it's somewhere like 5 to 7 days, depending on what you got going on.
Okay. Alrighty. Well, that's our top 10 list of non-Heisman winners since 2000.
Yeah. I'm sure there's going to be lots of debates on this one.
We're going to do more videos like this. We're going to keep them coming. We'll probably post this one sometime this weekend, and then we'll keep the regular episodes coming. But I appreciate you guys for sticking around again. Drop your takes down below in your top 10, and let us know which one was worse, me not having AP or him not having Jonathan Taylor. I feel like a lot of people are going to say AP just because of the career he had in the NFL as well.
He was a monster. We're going to let the people decide.
All right, y'all. We'll catch you guys next time.
All right, easy.